Okay, so this is the third problem in the mock. Again, I hope you have read the problem statement. If not, pause the video and read it. So we have to accept date in MMDD YYY format. Okay, so month, date, year, and then we have to print the date in DDMMYY format, where YY means you only retain the last two digits in the year. Okay, this is a common format for the date, right? So this is what you have to do. So there's a lot of splitting, slicing, all that we have to do. So let's get started. We'll take the help of this example. That will be the working example for us throughout this solution. Okay, so notice that here we have to accept input and print output. So there's no function writing business here. So we have to take care of both the input processing and the output processing. So that's the date that we have as input. Now what should we do? We have to first, this is the output that is required, right? You have to swap date and month. So this will be 01104, and then you have to retain the last two digits of the year. So this is the input, and this is the corresponding output. So what do we do? How do we proceed in a situation like this? So notice that you could approach it in multiple ways, but the first thing that you notice here is that you can split the string. This is a string, right? We'll accept this as a string. You can split the string based on this forward slash. Okay, so forward slash is what separates the month, the date, and the year, right? So you can split the string based on any delimiter, and in this case it's a forward slash. So once you split the string based on forward slash, you will end up with, so let me again write that down. So let's take this example again, working example for this problem. So you have the string which you split, okay, based on the forward slash. You will end up with a list as usual of strings. So first string will be 04, then you'll have 11 and 2023. Now what should you do? The next step is to swap the orders of 11 and 4. That is quite easy, and you have to extract 23 from 2023. How do we do that? This is just string slicing, right? So string slicing will give you 23. So that's the idea or the algorithm, right? Once you have found out the algorithm or the process that you want to follow, then coding becomes very easy. So what do we do? First we have to accept the input. Let's call it date. I am just accepting it as a string. Okay, so no int of input of float of input of business, right? It's just input, and I split the date based on this forward slash. Now that will return a list of strings, and I can unpack those three strings in the list into three variables, right? I'll call them. So this is what format? This is MMDDYYY, right? So let me call them. Let me use the same variable names, right? MMDDYYYY. This is how I get my input, and I have split the input and stored it in these three. Now what do I have to do? I have to form the new output. Okay, the output is of this form. Output is equal to dd. Okay, that comes first, plus a forward slash. So a string containing this forward slash. It should be a string. So this is a forward slash plus So far so good. What do we need to do? You need to extract the last two digits from here, right? So YY, let me call that the last two digits. I store the last two digits in YY. That is YYYY. I start slicing. So I need to slice YYYY. I have to go back two steps. Okay, I have to go back one step, two steps. So I go back two steps. So that's minus 2 colon. Okay, colon, I don't need to specify the end, right? So start from minus 2 and go all the way till the end. That will give me the last two digits of the year. And again, another forward slash here plus YY. That is my output string. I can go ahead and print my output string. Okay, so let's first see if this works. Directly submit it. Okay, so there is an error. So what is the error that we have made? 0 out of 5 private test cases have passed. So let's study the error. So the expected output is 11-04-23. So I missed that. Okay, so one must not panic. So we go back. I missed this part, right? You have to replace the forward slash with a dash. Okay, so I missed that part. So let me go and correct it. Okay, so let me go and correct that. So this should be a dash. All right, so that is, I hope that is the only mistake. Let's run it and see. Okay, 5 out of 5 private tests have passed. Okay, so this is one solution. Let's now go back and maybe look at some small variations. So I am assuming that you have understood that example, so I am deleting that. Okay, let's say the split remains the same. Now, instead of constructing this output string using string concatenation, that's what we have done, right? We have concatenated how many strings? One, two, three, four, five. We have concatenated five strings, okay, which is not wrong. So that's correct. That's one way to do it. Now, instead of doing that, we can also try out f strings, right? So, how do we do f strings? So, this is going to be the first part, okay. Now, this is dd hyphen hyphen yy, okay. So that is an f string. So remember, if you want to use an f string, you have to have the f before the start of the quotes, and then whenever you have variables, whenever you want to replace something by a variable in an f string, what should you do? You have to enclose that within these curly braces, right? So never forget that. Let me run this and see if this works. Okay, so this also works. Now let's look at one final way of doing this. So instead of creating a new string called out and printing out, this is, I prefer doing this way. Instead of doing that, what we can also do is directly use the print function. Okay, so I print, what is the first thing I print? dd, then I print mm, then I print yy. Okay, let's just print this and see what we get. So if you are only going to print dd mm yy, what will be the default separator between any two consecutive strings, or any two consecutive objects in the print function? It will be a space, right? So if you look at the actual output, notice that there's supposed to be a hyphen, but you have a space. Okay, so if you want to modify this behavior, what should you do? You have to introduce your own separator. Okay, the separator in this case is a hyphen. Okay, if you just introduce a separator hyphen as a separator and run it, you will end up getting the expected output. So 5 out of 5 private tests passed. Okay, so notice that this is the actual output that we have obtained by running our code, and this is the expected output. Okay, so we have actually looked at three different ways of solving this problem. Now you can also think about one more way. So, and what is that? You can avoid splitting the string. That is also possible, right? So the string will always be of the form what? mm/dd slash yyy, right? So the string will be of this form, right? So you can avoid splitting, and what can you do? You can take date and you can just do everything with slices, right? So first two, starting from the beginning and go all the way up to the first index, right? So this is 0 1 2 is not included, right? So this is colon 2, that will be the month. The date will be what? dd will be what? It should start from this t, right? So this is 0 1 2 3, so it starts from 3. So it starts from 3. So 0 1 2 3 4 5 should end at 5. Okay, so it should end at 5, meaning date of 3, date of 4, those three, index 3 and index 4 will be included. And then finally yy. So I don't even need to extract yy, right? It's enough if I extract yy. So what I can do is I can just delete, I can just call it yy and then do minus 2 comma minus 2 colon. That will give me the last two digits, right? This is done entirely using string slicing without having to go for split method of strings. This will also work. Okay, again 5 out of 5 private tests have passed. Okay, so if for any given problem there are like several solutions, and you have to pick whichever you think is most comfortable for you, right? So that's the end of the solution to the third mock problem.